2.6 million. Oh my god, bro. Hello everybody, it's your boy N here. I'm coming at you guys with another YouTube video. So in today's video, I have found the best AOE crit bunny. So yes, she covers a ton of range. She does a ton of damage into the millions, leading up to the 2 millions. So let me show you the build. Starting off with the bunny build, this is what you are going to want to run. Now, it may look a little bit unconventional, but I promise you this is absolutely great. Now, this build will get changed when the tree gets fixed, but for time being, this is what you are going to want to run, and it's still honestly great. So for this over here, you are, for your red module, going to want to use electric condense. That would also help out with nuking and with movement. Next up, you are going to want to run dangerous ambush for damage. Then we're using all of the crit modules, because this is of course a crit build. Focus on singular and electric. We are using focus modules because we do actually care about our cooldown for once. Next up, skill expansion and amp control for range, and amp control is used instead of maximized range because the tree is going to cover the rest. So this is the bunny build that you are going to want to be using. So let's talk about the other elements of this build. Next up, let's talk about the reactor and the external components. Now for the reactor, this is an absolute non-negotiable. You are going to need duration up and cooldown as of right now. For the two stats in the middle, you are going to need electric and singular. And for the optimization condition, I would highly recommend putting the scouting rifle condition on there. I made the mistake of not doing that, so now I have to switch between my hand cannon and my scouting rifle, which is a pain. But make sure to put scouting rifle because you're going to need the blue beetle. Now, for the external components, yet again, we are using the Slayer set for damage. Now, you could replace this with Annihilation, 2 pieces of Annihilation and 2 pieces of Ascending Armory, if you would like the build to run a little bit longer. But even with the Slayer set is going to give, the Slayer set is going to give you the best damage, so Slayer set it is. MP recovery out of combat, MP recovery in combat, and MP recovery modifier should be present for the best results in my opinion. Now, for the weapon, we are going to need the blue beetle. Now, it's best to put as much sprint speed on the blue beetle as you can because we are going to be taking advantage of its unique ability. So for the blue beetle's unique ability, when using a fusion skill, you grant yourself arcane energy, and when using a singular skill, you will grant yourself purification. What this means is once you use your bunny's first ability in this build, her fusion ability, you are going to give yourself a ton more crit chance, which is exactly what we need on bunny. So that is why we are using the blue beetle. Next up, let's talk about the Arche tuning tree. Now, at the time of recording this, enhanced skill power modifier is still bugged, so once this is fixed, this will be doing even more damage. That's all that you need to know right off the bat. Other than that, you are going to go down here and get a full damage skill power tree. So we're going to go for the damage, then we're going to go up towards the crit rate, the crit damage, and for time being the cooldown. Again, the cooldown once this build is fixed will no longer, once this tree is fixed, will no longer be necessary because we will replace it with the duration, and then we can use the other tree nodes elsewhere, for example HP. So this is the tree you are going to want to use on this build as well. So now I've gone on over the build, let me show you the gameplay of this build as well. Okay, so we'll start off with some special operations gameplay. Now, special operations does not actually scale down if you run it solo, so this is equivalent to running it in the full lobby anyways. But as you can see, we do hit a ton of crits left, right and center. We are using the blue beetle's unique ability with Bunny's first ability and then activating our third to get as much crit chance as we can. So this is fairly good, fairly fast, and the damage is very high. Even with our non-critical hits, they still end up being enough damage to like shit on everything. So even into the 100 to 2, 3, 4, 500k range, and then our crits just shoot beyond all the way into the million range. As you can see here, I'm just, running, spinning, jumping, average bunny activities, and the crits are juicy. Even if you don't hit a max crit, you still hit well into the range of 1.5 million, and the uptime and everything on this build is great as well, to the point where like genuinely you're not going to have any issues. If you run a crit AOE bunny, this is finally an actual valid option and does more damage than the non-crit counterpart, which I think is honestly really goddamn cool. So obviously I'm going to show you some more gameplay, but starting off, I think that some good all special ops gameplay is pretty nice. So here is the little bit of special ops gameplay, I'll move over to Sigma sector and let's take it over from there. So next up we have some good all 400% gameplay. Now I am running this solo just for the sake of showing you like the capability of this build, because it is best to see what your build can do in solo versus in online. Once we do switch over to our secret garden, but I'm tweaking, to our blue beetle and activate our first ability, you can see the crits raining in like magic. Now these are enemies that are, well, very much resistant to electricity, and even with the resistances that these mobs have, we are still hitting 800k crits on average. I would say crits can vary from like 100 all the way up to like 2 million crits depending on the enemy faction type, but even still hitting consistent 6, 7, 8, 900k crits is something I think is very, very nice. Later in the video, when you see me attacking more mobs in this exact gameplay here, actually, you will see that the crits will rise all the way up to 1 million, so on and so forth, but the crits in this build are genuinely great. Now I am going to actually assess Bunny's crits, so we are going to take a short break from the gameplay and let's talk about the issues with Bunny's crits. But before we do that real quick, let me show you some gameplay up against the final bosses in this mission. Now, I know people are generally on the consensus that Bunny's not really that good for deleting final bosses at the end of missions, which is something that I'm not going to 100% agree with, because, you know, with a high voltage build, you can do whatever. But with an AOE build, it is a little bit different. You can see here that even with this build, if I do the running and spinning with a xAlisa, you can see that I'm actually able to do fairly decent and very fast damage to the bosses. Now this is not going to be 1,000,000% of the time, because like I said, you know, there's a lot of factors on it, and I still need to put the right blooming mounting onto my reactor so I can actually finish this up a lot more. But over here you can see that once I do take their shields off, once I do cast my crits with the blue beetle again, you can see that we still actually do fairly decent damage to the bosses. Is it the fastest damage in the world? No, but is it better than an average Bunny builds damage with the non-critting stuff? I would actually say yes. So this is just a little gameplay of how it does against bosses. On average, it's gonna be nice, and it will do more if you do crit the bosses just like that, 300-400k depending, or 5-7 million depending on the boss's type. But overall, this is genuinely not bad damage, and I'm not trying to speedrun this or anything, so you know, what it is what it is, but even still, this is very, very capable. I want to talk about an issue that I think is existing with Bunny, and I honestly think it should really be fixed. Now with Bunny, whenever you use her abilities, you can see that my crit rate is 33% right now, and I think that even with the tree buffing this up to 33%, this is still insanely low for Bunny. Now there are other ways to get more crit rate, for example using 2 pieces of the battle aesthetic set. With this set, you are going to essentially pull your crit rate up to 35%. Okay, then when we use the reactor to also get crit rate on Bunny, where is my reactor? There you go. Wait, that's the right one. That is the wrong one. There you go. Crit rate and crit damage. So even with crit rate and crit damage, you can see Bunny's crit rate is 38%. Now if I use the trick from the blue beetle as well to give myself extra crit rate, let's just do this real quick. If I just use blue beetle's first ability to give myself crit rate, Bunny at her absolute peak will only have 50% crit rate. I feel like if you are to give Bunny another red module, make sure to add crit rate onto it, or even give absolute 0 treatment to high voltage. Make it so that when you run high voltage, you get 100% crit rate on it, because this would genuinely help Bunny out a lot. And I think crit rate is probably her biggest issue right now, which is not even a major issue, because running with crit is better than running with non-crit, especially with this build. Okay, so last but not least, let's show you some Sigma sector gameplay. So as you can see here, when there's a ton of enemies, it's just such a blessing. This is just so much fun, and honestly running crit is better than non-crit in this instance. Personally, I do think that this is the right scenario to be rocking crit, because now it just overall does more damage, and it's actually viable. Given the blue beetle aside, if the blue beetle could have 3 sprint cores, I do think this would be a little bit too overpowered, because you'd be at max sprint speed permanently, so on and so forth. But honestly, if Nexon do increase Bunny's overall crit rate, or at least allow her to have full crit with high voltage, this would be so much more cooler. Anyways, let's focus on this gameplay. Now, I was running a pub, people were back and forth, all of it, you know how it goes in public games. But once we get this done, let's run on over to the next part. My grapple, for some reason, Flick did not allow me to climb the barrier, so you know, it is what it is. But we're just running through the rest of the mission. Sigma Sector is another really great place for Bunny, and with this build, it just becomes a million times easier. And you can just see here, the enemies just get critted to hell and back. It's great. Tons of damage, even to the I don't even know the hell to call these things. The things, the square, I don't even know what the fuck they are. Just the things, guys. And easy. They just take damage, so on, so forth. Now for the boss fight. Another boss fight where you get to see how Bunny performs in this one. Now for this one, it is going to be basically what you expect. Bunny is going to do great, and she is going to hit some beautiful crits. Now, like I said, this is a great build, and it works very nicely, and even on the boss's weak points, you'll see well over into million crits regardless, knocking them all out immediately. Now, this is just, you know, it's what you want. I don't know what else to say. Bunny is great, and a critical nuke has been something that we've been waiting for a long time. Crit was never really the best option for Bunny since non-crit came out, but with the resurgence of the Arche tree, this has truly changed the way we play Bunny. And you can see here, even with this, when this boss is flying, jumping, all this sort of stuff, we're still hitting him with the crits in the air. Once the mobs spawn in, you know how it goes. Bunny goes crazy on mobs. Easy as it gets. Rip through them, grapple, spin round. You basically just have to run this. It's the best critical hit nuking build as of right now. Now, final bit. Let's just let the boss go down, and then we were going to call it there. But anyways, that's basically been this video, guys, and I hope you have enjoyed. If you did, please do smash that like button. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing. I'm insane about Bunny, but I've got plenty of builds coming for a lot of other Descendants. But yeah, that's been this video. Please do smash that like button. 270 mil damage, I can take that, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.